example, costing resources at the same time because of the energy consumption at this point of time. So it's always this kind of thinking where it can be used meaningful in what way, and there's a lot I think also to learn. But overall, I'm really excited actually, and this was what our students actually.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Actionable ESG Talk series brought to you by AKFI Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, the world's first nonprofit industry association committed to bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. My name is Isabella. I am the co-host here with Manuel, another co-host, and also the executive director at AKFI, and our special guest today, Christian. Welcome, Christian. Thank you for joining us today.
Isabella, Manuel, it's a pleasure to be with you here. Thank you very much for the
Thank you.
invitation.
Thank you, Christian. Thanks to this talk series, we get to connect with great minds like Christian and many others to together discuss the current and the future state of ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. Christian is a renowned entrepreneur and technology leader with a wealth of experience in developing digital products and supporting startups. He's currently the co-founder and CEO of Tomorrow University of Applied Sciences, which focuses on educating and empowering the change makers of tomorrow. Its core fields are sustainability, technology, and business. And I'm sure our conversation will open up everything around this community, Christian's work, a lot of things to unfold. I'll skip all these introduction, which we'll find our description page. So to open up our conversation, Christian, please share a little bit of the trends, the current state, especially under the two parallel transformation in human enterprises, the digital transformation, primarily driven by technology, artificial intelligence, decentralized technology, and the sustainability transformation focuses on the people, planet, and profits. How do you envision AI contributing to this transformation and the global sustainability agenda?
It's a big question we're starting with here, I think. One step back, looking at Tomorrow University, we're one of the first their first edtech actually in Europe, which is also state-recognized university. And when we founded the Tomorrow University, one of the questions was actually, what are the areas actually which are most relevant for the future? And you mentioned already that we are focusing on sustainability on the one hand side. Sustainability is really key understanding. It doesn't matter which program you're actually joining at Tomorrow University, you always learn about sustainability because at the end, we have just one planet. And it's really crucial that we need to change, we need to think differently, we need to think and act also sustainably. So that's the reason why everybody learns about sustainability in the first place. The second part is really for us about technology. There's now, with the last 3 decades, pretty much defined by digital media, by the internet, what we see ahead of us is a phase of artificial intelligence, which is rising now and becomes really a predominant factor. So it's really important that everybody also understands fundamentals of technology, and this is also integrated in every program. And the third part is about business. You mentioned it, either as entrepreneurial, as an entrepreneurial part, or as business within companies. But it's really important that change is also often driven by businesses and business understanding. And that's the reason why we focus on those 3 areas, because these are the most relevant areas actually for creating a more sustainable society, as we call it. That's our purpose. We really want to accelerate actually transition to sustainable society overall, and all our programs are targeted of that. So coming to the topic of AI, we believe that AI is one of the major pillars actually to influence actually the future of all futures. And we see this now also by a really fast adoption of ChatGPT, for example, in the daily use for productivity purposes of now, where more than 100 million users actually on a daily basis use those tools, but there are so many other tools now coming, and it feels like it's really still the beginning of this whole topic of AI. And AI will help us also to right, create a more sustainable planet. And this comes when it comes to resource optimization, when it comes to monitoring, when it comes to precision farming. There are many opportunities actually where AI really can help us to create also a better future. But also looking at AI, there's always this kind of effect we need to have. It's also more, for example, costing resources at the same time because of the energy consumption at this point of time. So it's always this kind of thinking where it can be used meaningful in what way. And there's a lot, I think, also to learn. But overall, I'm really excited actually. And this was what our students actually we see what they're doing it and how they are applying it. And I give you an example. Isabel, one of our students, um, who graduated, she founded a startup in the maritime space. So it's about actually what she found out that ships who are entering harbors actually quite spend a lot of time waiting in front of the harbors before they can enter. And she figured out and she used actually AI to help ships actually arrive just in time at the harbor so they don't spend time waiting actually around the globe. And it's really exciting to see that use cases like this, which is again about efficiency, are becoming possible. And that's a lot of data you need to process for that. Another case, for example, when it comes to, I mentioned farming. I think farming is a big one, and we see it's a lot about understanding also the nature there. And one of the possibilities, for example, is that you monitor also from satellite images and process satellite images with AI actually to analyze how they're developing. And this comes also then to possibilities of reporting and actually analyzing data and ensuring better compliance using AI on the other hand side. So there are, I think, a lot of really breadth of opportunities when it comes to leveraging artificial intelligence for a better future. And I mentioned just really a fraction here, but I'm really eager actually about all the things which become possible also in the next years and decades to come.
Manuel, can you unmute?
I was going to point that you have the tomorrow theme also in Isabella's book.
Yeah,
She authored about a year ago, maybe 2 years by now, The
yeah,
Digital
it's been
Mind
two
of Tomorrow.
years. Mm-hmm.
So my joke is the digital mind of today because tomorrow came faster, and I see the
Much
same theme
faster.
with you, the same theme with your university. So, and this is a debate also going in universities in the U.S. Like in Cornell, we question ourselves: what is the role of AI in education, and how can it be used ethically? In the sense that
Mm.
okay, I can get AI to write my thesis and graduate, but is it my thesis or is just 3 lines of code of instructions to AI and say write a thesis for manual, use this style and so on. So I'd like to open on the discussion about what is ethical and how do you see it from the perspective of tomorrow's university and from all these startups that you work with.
Yeah. Um, so for us, we believe so. AI, it's just a basic assumption is here to stay. So it's not about, I think, blocking it and trying to avoid it in the education phase at all. It's more, from our perspective, something to embrace, to learn, to understand. Yeah, and for sure, there needs to be some kind of regulation because again, the more we better we understand how it's used, we can also apply that. For us at tomorrow, it's really we integrate AI into our curriculum, and on the one hand side, thinking about real world applications, but also the theoretical part. Yeah, so it's something we really integrated in all our programs and curriculums across the MBA programs, short programs, but also just the classes themselves, where you learn about energy, AI, you learn about sustainability, you learn about human-centered AI, what you mentioned, yeah. And that means also that the students are actually encouraged to use it. Doesn't matter if it's in their thesis or if it's just in a project they are working with. Yeah. Um, but it's also important that, especially when it comes to ethically, it's also important that we don't have a traditional just exam which you can do like everybody else. Yeah. And we had this also in the past, it's nothing new. When I was going to school, there was people copying somebody else's work. Literally, I think this is I think an existing problem also. And now you can more or less just fake it by using AI, and maybe it's harder to detect, but it still was possible always. And I think there have always been students trying to misusing the systems, but I think the chance actually to use it for a good purpose, to come to better results, have deeper understanding, is immense. Yeah? And when we come to our curriculum and how it's structured, all the challenges of our students, it's really personalized, and it's already in a fashion that it's not just something theoretically, but they also need to apply something. Yeah, so they need to actually use it, and then they also explain how they use it so that they do understand it as well. Yeah, and I think this makes it meaningful. Yeah, so that you as a student also see that there is a benefit actually in it, rather than being afraid of it. Yeah. Nonetheless, again, this is something where this means also that for teachers, they need to understand and learn. They need also to be technical literate. Yeah, they need to understand also to use AI. And it is also on the other hand side. I give you another example. We have our teachers are, and we call them actually our academics and challenge journalists. They are also using AI to assess students' work quicker and better. Yeah, and it's not that we're using it only and then it's done, but it's like a co-pilot or supervision. Yeah, so you ask the AI to assess it, for example, on the other hand side. Yeah, and learn actually more and get a better understanding and be able to give better feedback as well, which helps again the students. So there can be, from our perspective, really mutual benefits. Yeah, and the key part for us here, it's really that it's interdisciplinary. It's not just by itself, but you actually need to combine that with other disciplinaries. And this is really then what we believe fully enriching.
Oh, Isabella, you have more. I think the bigger picture of ethical AI. Uh, so maybe you can go
Yeah,
ahead.
Christian, when did you start to pay attention to the ethical part of the AI, or is it in the conversation yet? How's the status right now around your world?
Yeah, so this again, we have even special challenges, as we call our courses, about innovate ethically with AI. So it's I would say it's a fundamental part. If you deal with data, doesn't matter if it's now talking about data privacy, GDPR, if it's about bias, data bias, what are we training data actually on, and what does it mean actually if we're using AI? Um, and then we're also thinking about, how to do we deal with it. So do we recommend our students to use just one AI, for example, or do we then ask them actually to use several AIs to because you get different results actually because the data sets they are trained with are also different. So this is a very important part actually of tomorrow, and of our whole curriculum. And this is again for the students, but the same is also true for the teachers, yeah, or for our systems which we are building. The question about training data, the question about data privacy, all the things are the matter, yeah, and then also the use cases, yeah. As you mentioned, you can also use it to cheat in a way, yeah. So again, this is also about ethical application of AI. What are you using it for? Matters, yeah. Being conscious about, for example, also energy usage. Yeah? We know that, for example, just a Google search will cost less energy than an AI system. This is now on one query, it doesn't matter. But if you're thinking about scale and if you're building systems with a million queries, this has huge implications. Yeah. And this is, I mean, energy consumption is one of the big things what we're seeing currently which is happening also with AI. On the other hand side, that there's just more energy hunger based on the models we're about to train there. So it's a complex topic, and I think it's really important that we build up an understanding there. And maybe one more topic to mention on the ethical part. In Europe, it's regulated also in the first version with the AI Act. So there are different levels of classification on AI. If it's different if you use it in surveillance or with for example, with education or with the health space. There are different quality assurance criteria, use cases, also what you're allowed to do, what not, for example. Yeah? And I think this is important. I think even that Joe Biden did give a talk at the United Nations, I think this week. And I think it was really, really important because he was raising the awareness that AI will change the future so much substantially and maybe more than the last 50 years technology have changed the things. So it's very important that we think about regulation and not just maybe on a country or a state level, but actually really even on a global level. Because again, even on country level, we are so much connected now today. So I think it's really important that we're thinking on it on a bigger level, actually cross country, yeah, of United Nations, European Union, US together to really come up with solutions which are not just innovative, not just helping us, but also thinking about the side effects. And that is, I think, really important.
Thank you. Absolutely. It's a balance between leveraging how AI can advance us versus the side effect, the drawbacks from undiscovered areas of AI development. So now it seems like it's a balance between the two. It's not either or.
I think this is very, very important. Really, the topic of regulation, because it's one thing we have a couple of users using it, and then still innovation, and we can play around with it. But the more we see now such a fast adoption of this technology, yeah? And the question is also how can we innovate it when we don't fully understand it? Yeah, how can we regulate it if we don't fully understand it? But these are questions we really need to work on, and we need to think about how we can regulate it because of the side effects. Yeah, yeah. Just thinking
Yes.
about the elections now out loud, yeah, because I mean we had that topic of fake news, fake videos, big things happening on that inside as well. So it becomes much harder also to understand what is truth. So eventually we need to advance our trust architecture, really better understanding who is who is it, is this real, is this not real? Talking about annotating, for example, also fake, is this a fake image or a real one? And there's a lot of things I think happening at a really high pace now.
Absolutely. It's a very urgent topic, and the good thing is we're talking about it, but also no one actually knows how to practically to do it. We have a lot of statements, declaration, resolution, and as you mentioned, it needs to be collaborated among the nations. It's not a single entity action. So a lot of challenges ahead, and France is going to host the summit in February. It's supposed to be for safety AI, but now it's changing to action AI. So we'll see how that develops.
Yes, so it's so important topic.
I was just going to add one thing from the topic. We all know AI, we call it confabulate or hallucinate.
Yes.
And
Hallucination, yeah.
by doing that, AI feeds back. I was reading this morning, feeds back into the internet the fabulation, the confabulation, the hallucination. And now
Yes.
the next AI iteration picks up and says, "Oh, this should be real. It's on the internet, right?"
Yes.
So
Yes.
there is one of the many properties of AI that we are just starting to understand while we writing the regulations and trying to balance the act of a useful tool, a very useful tool versus a very dangerous tool in ethical terms, in practical terms, right?
Yes. I can't wait now. Soon we will see the regulations written by AI as well. So eventually the AI is trying to regulate itself. But I think
Uh,
all this, there's so much happening. That's what I mean. It's so hard to understand also the complexity of it. And the example you gave really is really important, yeah, that an AI is actually trained on AI generated data. Which eventually again has a very strong data bias. And this is a lot of questions come arise with this. And what we also see, talking about technology field here, there's a huge, I think, Meta, but also Apple, because they don't have enough data sets available for training, they create artificial data sets and train then on top of this again the data. But again, it's very hard, I think, to do this without creating bias as well. And this can go into both directions, like we had with Google Gemini, which then all of a sudden, created World War pictures with the then wrong people of wrong color, and it didn't match up at all anymore. So this is a complex topic as well, and I think it's so important. Again, we are at the beginning here. We're looking also into advancements now into the physical space with self-driving cars, humanoid robots, which will use AI. So this will become more present, and it will also become more dangerous. Yeah, or yeah, I will say there's a lot of chances, but again, there's also we need to do this really consciously, and look at the risks and really. It's not just try and error. There needs to be some kind of regulations with the mass adoption. Yeah.
Right, but you are at the cutting with the tomorrow's university. You are at the cutting edge. So I'm an engineer, right? So ethics was not part of my curricula.